Welcome in. A federal court decision ends a legal battle that has cost the city of Salina $500,000.
A judge deciding today that the Cozy Inn can move forward with painting a mural on the side of its building. Jacob Ballbrook joins us in studio with that decision and how part of the city's sign ordinance is ruled unconstitutional.
Rachel, Mike, today a federal judge ruling part of Salina's sign ordinance, as you mentioned, unconstitutional. The argument started when the city halted work on the mural you see behind me here at the Cozy Inn. The city classified the mural as a sign because it said it references products sold at the restaurant, subjecting the mural to strict regulations. The restaurant's owner, Stephen Howard, argued that the distinction violates his First Amendment rights, and the judge agreed, ruling the hold on Howard's permit application as a restraint on free speech. We talked to the Kansas Justice Institute about what this all means.
If people have the strength and courage to fight back when the government does something wrong, they can win and they will win. The government cannot make things up as they go along. They cannot censor speech. They cannot prohibit murals because of the content of it.
So despite today's ruling, the judge did deny the restaurant's request for a broader injunction against the entire sign code, but the ruling does mean that the city cannot enforce the mural sign distinction based on the display. Salina says it's evaluating the decision today and looking at the next steps to resolving this issue. Mike?